Welcome back. The DNC just announced that 20 candidates have qualified for the first round of Democratic presidential debates. The one candidate in the field who's won statewide in a state carried by President Trump is not going to be on the stage. Joining me now is Montana Governor and a Democratic presidential candidate, Steve Bullock. Governor Bullock, I know this was news I think that you were expecting and hoping that it wouldn't be the case. What's your reaction?
Yeah, of course, Chuck, I'm disappointed with the DNC. And I certainly knew getting in at the time I did would give me fewer opportunities to be on shows with you and others. But I had a job to do. And if it ultimately ever came down to choosing between getting Medicaid reauthorized, getting 100,000 Montanans health care versus getting in earlier just to try to bump up on yet another poll, I'd make that same choice time and time again.
Put yourselves in the shoes of the Democratic National Committee. You got 24 people running. There is only logistically, at best, 10 a night that you can pull off. What do you do if you're them? Don't you have to set some sort of guardrail here, do you not? Yeah,
and, they said here are established polling groups that they'd count, and then at the last minute they kicked off one of the Washington Post ABC polls.
In fairness, that wasn't a real, that poll wasn't, it was sort of a different kind of poll. This was a poll that was open-ended, and people even gave answers like Donald Trump and Michelle Obama. I take your point that it met the technical definition of ABC Washington Post, but it was not a poll like the rest of them. And in fairness, I don't think anybody anticipated this loophole.
Yeah, and in fairness, we don't have to quibble about the individual polls. An open-ended poll might be a lot harder to actually get on than others. And if Democrats are actually, some of them are saying that they're going to vote for Donald Trump, maybe we ought to be talking about why is it the Democrats haven't been able to break through both urban and rural areas, give people a reason to vote for us and not just against him if we still have some of those supporters. But fundamentally, too, I think that you got to turn around and say, we're like 235 days away from the first voter expressing a preference. You're the man of statistics. I think if you look back 4 years ago, Ben Carson was probably polling #1 at the time. So
I'll give you one more. I'll give you one more for you.
If I wanted to get,
I'll give you one more. Mitt Romney wasn't in the first Republican debate in 2011. And he was the Republican nominee. So you have an opportunity to get into the next round of debates with the same criteria. Do you feel pretty confident going forward?
I'll give you one more. One more, I don't think Bill Clinton even announced till October of 1991. Right. So I get the desire to get moving quickly, but this really is about both having the opportunity for voters to hear from us along the way, recognizing that we're still a long way before the first voter ever expresses their preference.
You've spent a lot of time in Iowa. You spent a lot of time in Iowa in 2018, and then you had your legislative session, so you were limited in what you could do. Is it fair to say that Iowa, it's obviously first on the calendar, but for you, it's even extra important?
Well, I think that Iowa's traditionally always played the role, sort of that great sorting hat of taking a large field, narrowing it down. I've really enjoyed my time, the trips I've taken to Iowa. The Attorney General there, Tom Miller, endorsed me right when I came in. So, yeah, I'll be spending a lot of time, certainly in Iowa and the early states, going to New Hampshire next week. And what I'll be doing more than anything else, the way that I've always won in Montana, 3 times in Montana, is sort of putting people ahead of sort of the politics or the food fights. And I think that that's how I've been successful. And I think that's what folks want out of the next candidate for president on the Democratic side.
Are you going to accept this decision by the DNC or still challenge
it? Chuck, you just showed the board of everybody that's going to be on there. So certainly, disappointed in it. But the greater point really is also that, yeah, I am the only one in the field that's actually won in a Trump state. And we need to win back some of the places that we've lost. Even a deeply divided time. My legislature is 60% Republican. Tobacco companies spent $26 million trying to defeat Medicaid reauthorization. And we got that done. I think that's an important voice, but it's also, I had that job to do, and that's where I needed to be.
It's interesting. You have gotten some Republicans to support you in some campaign finance efforts in Montana. There has been a bipartisan concern about dark money in Montana that's frankly unique to the other 49 states. We don't see that same sort of bipartisan concern. You're watching this election interference. It seems to be that they can't get bipartisan consensus on this. What would you do if you were a Democrat in the Senate right now? If you're Mark Warner, you can't get Mitch McConnell to do anything, and you're hoping that the Republicans follow the rules. What would you be doing?
Well, if I was in the Senate right now?
Yeah, Senate or President. How would you get this election security bill passed? Yeah. And if you were in the Senate, how would you do it? If you were president, how would you do it? Because it seems to me that the Republican leader doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, look, we got two different things, money and election security. Like, I've, in my 10 years in public office, in my time in Iowa and other places, I've never heard one person out there saying, there's just not enough money in the system, or there's certainly not enough dark money. So I think that we have to address that. I think at some point that we've got to elevate, when we especially talk about election security. You had the president with Putin saying, I'll take him at his word. We know what happened this last cycle, and Republicans got to step up and invest to make sure that people can have faith and trust that how they vote, where they vote, and who they vote for is actually going to be recorded this next cycle.
Let me ask you about a few red state cultural issues, right? The red state challenge for Democrats like you usually comes up with two issues, abortion and guns. You've seen... Can you win in Montana and not be for any restrictions on abortion as a Democrat?
The whole time that I've served as governor of Montana, I've said that as far as a woman's right to make her own health care decisions, that should be between the woman and her doctor, and if she so chooses, her family and her faith. And that's not the role that government should play. So my whole time in office, I've been consistent stopping efforts to undermine Roe versus Wade. And I think that we can do that. That doesn't mean I don't have respect for people that believe and think differently than I do. But it's just whether the government should be making that decision.
Well, guess what? The fact that you hear the chimes also means I'm up against my hour. It's almost fitting that we have music or a clock that is cueing us out. Governor Bullock, yeah. I know at least we get to end
the church bells in the community.
The church bells are ringing. Anyway, Governor Bullock, I know you're disappointed, but I suspect we will see you soon. Thanks for coming on and sharing your views, sir.
I sure hope so, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.